So this is going to be given through the frame of dentistry. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. We go to dental school and medical school in my case, so I kind of cross lines a little bit. But what I'm going to talk about is relevant for all the health professions. And the reason we talk about wellness and burnout and stress is that when we look at Caitlin's unfortunate situation, this is her unfortunate suicide note. So this is a subject that's kind of taboo. We don't talk about it that much because it's a little bit dark, obviously, but it's obviously important. Obviously, a lot of torment, okay? And a little bit of the reason this stuff is underreported is because some of it is not coded exactly correctly by medical examiners. So probably the numbers are a little bit more skewed towards these accidental drowning, accidental gunshot wound, accidental stuff that may not necessarily be so. But what is evident is that over 60% of those with a suicidal ideation indicated they're reluctant to seek help. Because you're concerned it can affect your career, right? If you're in the health sciences and having those types of problems yourself, you don't want that to adversely affect your practice. So psychologically, wellness is ethically imperative. And that folds into an entire wellness and finding balance, which is important for you now. I wish I could tell you that it got completely easy when you get out into the real world, but you're going to go out there and then you're going to have the stress of getting a practice, and you're going to have to put some kids on top of the situation if you haven't already, and things get a little bit more complicated even. So the World Health Organization defines this wellness as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. That's kind of important. So there's an entire spectrum of wellness. So I'm going to play you a video off of Medscape, and this is a physician colleague of yours, right out of practice.
My name is Elizabeth Baxter. I'm a 34-year-old family physician and work in a community practice. I find myself in a very difficult situation, and I'm not sure how to get out of it. When I finished residency, I was recruited to join a busy practice. It looked good. There was lots of administrative support, overhead was low, and the group seemed grateful to recruit a female physician. Felt like a match made in heaven, and things went well, more or less, for the first 2 years. The practice manager initially gave me a hard time for being slower than the other physicians and not billing as much. It was a source of irritation, but she seemed to understand that I practiced differently. Most of the other physicians referred me their complex psychosocial cases, and that many of my patients simply need more time to manage. Anyway, I then discovered I was pregnant and requested leave. I thought my colleagues would share my happiness. Instead, they said it was too early to ask for leave, that I needed to find my own locum, and get this, they hoped I wasn't planning on having a big family. Well, I did take a 4-month leave, and I returned a year ago. The practice manager is back to giving me a hard time and has more or less ordered me to increase my billing by 30%. She really is a bully. My colleagues are frosty. At best, I never ask about my life, my baby, or my career. We don't seem to share the same values for family that I thought we did. And the work is just piling up. No matter how late I stay, how much work I do at home, or how many lunch breaks I miss, I can never catch up. I'm miserable and I'm not sure what I can do.
So what is she exhibiting? Shout out some things. There's a lot of information. So she's right out of school, and she's burnt out already within the first year. So we define burnout as emotional exhaustion. She's overextended, you heard her talk about that. Depersonalization, a negative, cynical attitude, treating people more as objects than as patients, and a sense of low personal accomplishment, feeling incompetence, inefficiency, and inadequately. And she kind of touched on all of that. It affects your work life, and unfortunately, you can bring that stuff home with you as well. So there's a lot of causes of it. Overwork, sleep deprivation, low control, high responsibility, inadequate support, lack of self-awareness, imbalance between personal and professional life. Anybody have any of that? Everybody has to have some sense of it at this juncture in your career. And I know I did, and it's okay, admit that stuff. It's reasonable. So consequences of burnout at work, and this is studied research, so we know this from the physician. There's a large body of evidence about this. Lower empathy, higher medical errors, prematurely quitting practice like she did, and poor relationships with your coworkers and at home as well. And unfortunately, at home, it rears its ugly head in substance abuse, distractedness with automobile accidents, stress-related health problems, and marital and family stress. So it's real important to be aware of the consequences of burnout. So in the health field, why are we set up in particular for the stress and the burnout? So in dentistry, as well as the other health professions, we're confined to a small place. It feels like a prison cell in a dental laboratory, which is often windowless and very closed. It can be the same thing for a variety of different medical offices, pharmacy area, depending where you're at. So confinement. Oftentimes we don't discuss things well enough. Sometimes you get into a busy private practice and you're going to have a sense of competition, so you may not want to share ideas because you have a somewhat competitive nature built in, or maybe because you're isolated or you're working all alone in a rural area, you don't talk to people enough and bounce things off them, okay? So isolation. We're all taught to be perfect, but unfortunately the world we live in is not perfect. So striving for that perfection and then having a biological patient around it, which often deconstructs even despite your best work, is really stressful as well. So our treatments don't always succeed. Anybody have student loans? Everyone should be raising their hands on this. Yeah, so there's going to be tremendous economic pressure when you get out. And I wish I could tell you it was rainbows and pots of gold from day one, but unfortunately, a lot of you will go out and acquire a practice in some instances and take on some debt. But most of you are going to go get a residence at least, and you're going to have a home loan, you're going to have an automobile, you're going to start doing that sort of stuff, and then you're going to have families and add another layer of expense. So there's a lot of economic pressure on what we do. And then everyone is feeling this mounting pressure of time, even right now. And again, it's really important to help yourself in your relationship with time. And part of that may be adjusting your schedule so that you don't feel like out of the gates you're running an hour behind. And I was in private practice 15 years before I came here to teach, so I know exactly what that's like when at 8:15 you feel behind, and you set the stage for that through your entire workday. So you can exert some control over time pressure. You don't have to be a slave to that. And of course, no matter what health profession you're in, there's going to be patient anxiety. That's also, that transfers onto you as you get out seeing more and more patients. Their anxiety, you can become part of that. So it's important to distance yourself from that as much as you can while still being empathic to their needs. So this is unfortunately the shape of things to come for many of us, because one of the things we first sacrifice in our time crunch is maybe our healthy eating habits and our lunches, and maybe we don't get up and eat breakfast like we should, and certainly maybe we're not going to the gym after work because there's just not time for ourselves. So I kind of tell the dental students that their degree, D.D.S, can stand for dormancy, degeneration, and stress. And all three of those things are prevalent in our field. The good news is it doesn't have to be that way. You can help yourself. But left untreated, stress can kill you. And there's a lot of medical research on it. Emotional illness ranks third in order of frequency for health problems amongst dentists. It's not that different for physicians. There's this misconception that dentists are the suicidal profession. That doesn't really bear out in the literature. All the health professions share similar rates of stress. Coronary disease and high blood pressure, more prevalent amongst dentists than in the general population, and we suffer psychoneurotic disorders at 2.5 times that of physicians. Stress-related cardiovascular disease is a killer. And we lose the numeric equivalent of one large dental school class each year due to this stress-related illnesses. So you've got to find a strategy for yourself, and it's not too early to do it now while you're in training to combat this. So here's what doesn't work. Everything will be fine, okay? Just stop worrying. Those are examples of just, trying to stop thoughts or ignoring things. Avoidance through the use of alcohol or prescription drugs. Distraction and procrastination. Anxiolytics. This is kind of interesting. It's one of my areas that I like to research. I'll put a plug in for a class I teach in interprofessional education. We try to teach mindfulness, which is kind of a meditative strategy based on Buddhist tradition, where we try to combat stress. There's a lot of research in that area of medicine right now, and you can make some real great, we use it quite a bit to treat chronically anxious and depressed, and it also has some health benefits as well. So cognitive, thought, and behavioral strategies can work, okay, as opposed to the thought stopping, which won't. So let's see what our colleague did and what one of her strategies were for combating this.
My friend suggested I work with an executive coach to explore my burnout. This was a great idea, even though I was doubtful at first. One of the first things we did was explore who I was. What really made me tick, what really defined who I was. It was a good process, and I discovered that my practice group and I were really not meant to be together. Our core values were too different. It wasn't personal, it wasn't targeted, it was just different. That took a lot of my cynicism and bitterness away, which felt good. Anyway, I left that group. I found another group that is much more supportive and respectful of my life situation and choices. We still work hard, and I still work with complex cases, but the environment is different. It's more like a team. I also decided to work part-time. This has helped my family a lot, and I feel like things are in better balance. We were worried about the drop in income, but my financial advisor helped us, and that we're managing just fine. It's all about value choices, I guess. I'm kind of glad I burned out. Sounds silly, I know, but it forced me to look at who I am. Now I'm making more genuine choices and feeling more real. I'm feeling much better, and I think I know how to stay in good health.
So again, a lot of information in a short video, but those are some positive life changes that she made. And we'll talk about some of those healthy coping behaviors as we go ahead. She has a great philosophical attitude now because she's got some good support in her workplace. She had to make a drastic move, which was changing her practice environment, but sometimes if you get out and you're in a toxic environment like that, you might have to change it. She's engaged, finding meaning in life, having a better time with her relationships, and she alluded to the fact that she's got more time to take care of herself, exercise, nutrition, and you can cultivate self-awareness through meditation, like I talked about, support groups, or narrative writing. Stress, unfortunately, is pervasive in the modern world, and all the technology advances that we have are unfortunately making it a little bit worse as far as there's a lot of different aspects of stress, environmental stressors, major life events you'll have, there's trauma and abuse that people have, and this whole perceived stress, our behavioral responses to it, and our individual differences genetically or developmentally lead to this real physiologic stress. And if you're not able to adapt to it, you may get overloaded, and being chronically overloaded with stress will decrease your life expectancy. And that medical research has been done. So it's important. As a society, are we well? Are we stressed? 60 to 80% of outpatient visits can be related to stress. That's staggering. Linked to all leading physical causes of death: heart disease, cancer, stroke. Associated with the development of most major mental health problems: depression, PTSD, pathologic aging. And yet we spend little or no time talking to our patients about stress as a part of our appointments. It's almost ignored. So one component, I got this off the internet, you can find a lot of these. These are elements of wellness. I'm going to go through them briefly. I surveyed our dental students. Were you there for that? And we have some of their answers. Unfortunately, they're getting to repeat this in their year. Social wellness, ability to relate to and connect with other people in your world, maintain positive relationships.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kind of ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones, so many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. Because while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. Because while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone, because friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post and talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, because I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time do you want us to Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs, and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people on aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. Because that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
Having grown up, and I remember distinctly when the Windows operating system came out, that was like in 1990-ish. I thought, oh, computers, that's kind of weird, maybe we'll do that. We'll find out now in healthcare that when I'm with the surgery residents, a lot of the focus of their time is actually on the computer, not patient interactions. And it's easy for these devices to dominate your life. So I think it's really important for mental health to shelve that stuff for a while, take some time for yourself. That can be done in a wide variety of areas. I go to extreme lengths to do it. I like to do expedition medicine. So I will put down my phone for up to a couple of weeks at a time and go out into the wilderness. It's a restorative option for you. You can do that. You don't have to do that. You can do that by going to the gym. You can do that by just taking a time out. But it's increasingly hard to do. One of the other components of wellness is emotional wellness, ability to understand ourselves and cope with the challenges that life can bring. And being able to acknowledge fear, anger, sadness, and stress, hope, love, and joy in a productive manner. Environmental wellness, the positive perception of the environment the one works and lives in. So occupational wellness is one where we found some differences to get personal fulfillment from jobs and chosen career fields. This turned out really good for us. You're excited, but that can be a little bit different than your path to financial wellness. So while you're happy with your chosen career paths, you're all getting a little feeling of burden of debt. So this question was really significant. This one as well. And so in that particular area, our mean was creeping up into a little bit less satisfying zone. So people are worried about their financial future and their current financial status. At dentistry, we know that our student debt is about $250,000 when people leave the dental school. You can tack on quite a bit more for specialty training as well. I'm assuming, I don't know what it is for pharmacy in particular, medicine's a little bit higher than ours even. Happiness is good because at this point in your careers, you feel good about your choices. You're happy going to work most days. Get some sense of purpose. I'm going to give you a little caution about spending. It's nice when you get out and you start practice to have a little bit of money in your pocket. I just caution you that sometimes you can outspend your resources pretty quickly by buying fancy cars, having a high work overhead.
Hey, Kirk here. A lot of us heading out on spring break, hopefully come back a little bit more refreshed. It might be the perfect opportunity to ask yourself this question. Am I leading a life that's sustainable? Am I on the right road? Could you see yourself doing it this way for another decade? I recently ran into a dentist who said on average he was getting 5 hours of sleep per night, hadn't exercised in a long time, and wasn't able to take a paycheck for the last 3 months. That's not a sustainable pattern. That's something we call a dead-end road. Here's the cool thing about this profession. At any time, you can change direction. It's like that dentist I was telling you about. Write down the problems that are holding you back. That's how you find the solutions. The ones to a more sustainable life, and the ones that lead you to a better road. Like maybe this one. I hope this one leads the right way. And if it doesn't, I'll find another one. Good luck to you.
It's really important when you get out to surround yourself with a good financial team and to really get in touch with your debt load and have a plan to abolish it, because you're going to find out that once it's gone, you achieve a level of freedom in life that's a big weight lifted off you. You can do that by spending within your means, getting together with your accountant, and finding a strategy that works for you, and then getting your office overhead in control. It's going to be really important for all of you out there to do that. Intellectual wellness, ability to open our minds to new ideas and experiences that can be applied to personal decisions, group interaction, and community betterment. So personal growth. And this can be approached a bunch of different ways. We're all going to have tremendous opportunity in our fields to do continuing education, but it's real nice if you can get a hobby outside of that to keep yourself sane and do some growth in another way. Right now you don't have time for that, but if you can carve out a little bit for it, I think it's a very important thing. And our students did really well on that, so higher numbers are better, so that's good. And it should be, you're hugely personally growing right now in a really condensed time period. That becomes more difficult to do as you just get into the daily grind of practice when you get out, as many of you are going to be doing it for 30 years, so you have to find some different areas of growth, maybe outside of your field, to keep yourself happy. This is real important. I think that this is probably, we may not need this huge medical center if we could get people to be more physically well. And then finding a sense of purpose and meaning in life. There's a lot of interesting research going on right now in this area, along with the mental health folks. There are some studies that show that just having a sense of purpose can increase your life expectancy by 10 years. That's really dramatic data. So this spiritual wellness is important. A lot of people do that through religion, principles and ethics. In addition, you do meditation, prayer. So our students, 28% reported every day or more, 21% most days, 16% somewhat often, 19% infrequently, and some. Analyses show that meaningfulness and sense of purpose that older people have in their lives are related to survival. And there's been some studies showing it can be up to a decade. So purpose is important. And we're going to conclude with a little purpose video. I like to break up these presentations with videos so you don't have to listen to me too long at once. This is kind of a motivational thing.
If you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life? What will be different? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And most people, they go to their graves with their greatness still in them. What if you live your whole life only to discover that it was wrong? We've all taken time just to stop and reflect many times when we hear what's happening in the news or read the newspapers. Where's all of this leading to? What's going on here? And so I think that now more than ever, we must begin to look at what are the things that we can do that would put us on some firm footing in life, that will enable us to do some things and use some powers that we have, that many of us go through life never ever discovering that we have those things going for us. And part of that, I believe, is knowing what it is your life worth. What is it that gives your life a sense of meaning and purpose? See, if you know what your life work is, I encourage you to start working on it. If you can't do it all at one time, do just a little bit of it. And if you don't know what it is that you showed up to do, if you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life? Because once you find that, it puts you in your power place. 85% of the American public, according to recent studies, are going to jobs that they hate, working on jobs that do not challenge them. They get sick thinking about going. Because see, when you go to a job and you already know how far you can go, you can already see that proverbial glass ceiling. See, when you're going someplace and you already know how much you're going to make, you already know how far you can go, you're in a dead-end position. It erodes your self-esteem. It lowers your sense of yourself. It creates an inner turmoil. It creates an emptiness in you. So I say that your life is worth finding what it is that you're supposed to do. Imagine, if you will, being on your deathbed and standing around your bed, the ghost of the dreams, the ideas, the abilities, the talents given to you by life, but you, for whatever reason, you never pursued those dreams. You never acted on those ideas. You never used those gifts. You never used those talents. And there they are staring at you as you're lying on your bed with large, angry eyes saying, we came to you. Only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever. And the question is, if you died today, what dreams, what talents, what abilities, what gifts, what ideas would die with you?
So when we get out of these healthcare profession jobs, we've sometimes you box yourself into a certain degree. In our fields in dentistry, there's very few things that you can go out and do besides dentistry in order to dig yourself out from some of the financial burden you've taken on. So more than likely, you're going to be involved in your jobs, whether that's pharmacy, dentistry, medicine, okay? So those things aren't totally controllable, right? You're going to have family obligations possibly, spouse, children. Those obligations aren't going to go away. But sense of purpose doesn't mean that you have to completely change careers. So when you get to be my age, at 45, you'll start to get these little existential thoughts that start popping into your head. And those things are interesting. It's an interesting time of life to go to. What is the meaning of your life? What am I here to do? I get tremendous fulfillment from coming here to teach. That's a life change I made within my career. So that's a different thing that I did to mix it up, and it's been one of the most rewarding things I've done. Also one of the most scary things I've done, because I sold a thriving practice and my interest in a surgical center to come and do that. My wife did it the same. I transplanted our kids. But sometimes in order to get personal growth or purpose, you need to go through some stress or some pain. So don't be afraid to do stuff like that if you find that you're getting to a place where you need to change things up. Another technique I use is, I told you that I like to do mountaineering. So I have a fellowship in wilderness and environmental medicine. That allows me to go on expeditions and do something out of the box. So it also keeps me accountable. So when every year I go to a different mountain, I've got something on my books that gives me some purpose. Hey, you ought to get up and go to the gym and do that. Hey, you ought to check the route that you're going to climb. Hey, mundane things like checking my backpack and figuring out how much food I'll need on the trip gives me a sense of purpose. So it doesn't have to always be finding new religion, finding new career. You can do some other things in your life, like you saw the person running down the beach. Just make some small step. So while you don't know about this burnout subject, hopefully that much, you probably will come into it at some point in your career. Just know that there's resources for it, and you can make some positive changes for it. And we're set. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer anything. Yeah.
Tell us more about the mindfulness class that you were talking about.
So that's an 8-week elective course. We're going to start it in January. We meet from 3 to 5 at the nursing school. So that's an interdisciplinary class with Patricia Kenzer. It's IPEC 525. And what we do is go through a series of didactic instruction. Where first we'll tell you what is mindfulness, You know, it's basically kind of a meditative, getting in control of your breath, and what kind of strategies you can employ as a healthcare provider to be mindful, whether that means just stopping and taking 3 big breaths before you burst into a patient room all discombobulated, how to think before you act when you're talking to colleagues, and categorize your emotions and reflect on other people's positions. So it's didactic instruction. You'll find people from all the schools there, pharmacy, medicine, nursing. You get into small groups, you talk about patient interactions, you talk about your relationship to stress, how to do things like not catastrophize, how to not ruminate, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, how to not get into, you know, as a surgeon, sometimes we start a procedure and we're thinking about the worst possible outcome when that hasn't even happened yet. So how to deal with future regrets and future worry that doesn't exist yet, along with shelving some of your past issues that don't exist anymore. So being in the present moment. So you'll find 8 sessions. I think it's a 1 credit